Hello, I'm Valerie Green, and welcome to Soul Shaking Love online training. So, I'm your host, Valerie Green from Valerie Green, CoachValerieGreen.com, and I help women to attract, reignite, and sustain lasting love. And I'm excited to be here today with Ginger Corwin. And we're going to,
Hi.
hello, Ginger, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I know. I'm excited because we're going to talk about how women can cultivate a state of bliss and happiness no matter what is going on around them. Just so important. And so I'll tell you a little bit about Ginger. She's a happiness coach and a speaker, a yoga teacher, and an Amazon best-selling author of the book Your Weekly Guide to Bliss, which I have read a lot of, and it's really amazing because she has daily practices that you can do to reconnect with your own sense of bliss no matter what is going on in your life. And so she helps women who are searching for a deeper level of happiness and self-love to find self-acceptance, power in their thoughts, and happiness in the present moment so that they can feel financially free, fiercely confident, and in control of their lives. So that's just very exciting. And I'm sure that we're all wondering, Ginger, what are the actions that people can take to cultivate happiness now, no matter what is going on around you?
I think there's a lot of different things that we can do, and I will go over some of them in detail. I think the first thing is to really understand our emotions. So if you are in that place where maybe you're not feeling happy, where maybe you're not feeling fulfilled, I think when you better understand what emotion you're going through at the moment, that can really help you to better understand what's going on in your life, better understand, what you can do to take action to start to feel better. But I think a lot of times we don't allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling. We feel sad or angry, depressed, all these different feelings that I think go under the umbrella of unhappiness. But once we understand what we're feeling and we actually allow ourselves to be present in that feeling, I think that's what allows us to get to a better state of mind. Because so often we feel sad or we feel anger, we feel shame, we feel guilt, and we don't allow ourselves to really feel it. We try to put a Band-Aid over it. We try to pretend that everything's okay. And that feeling will show up over and over again until you show up for that feeling. So one thing that Gabby Bernstein always says, if you don't show up for what's up, it will keep showing up. Yep. So I think that's really important, is to allow yourself to spend time with that emotion. And you can do that in a meditative state, quieting your mind, maybe spending out some time outside and just asking, what am I feeling? And then identify that feeling. Is it shame? Is it anger? Is it guilt? Because a lot of times all those feelings are wrapped up in unhappiness.
Exactly.
But understanding more specifically what it is so that you can address it, you can allow yourself to feel it, you can have a conversation with that emotion. What am I feeling right now? Why do I feel that way? And allow your inner guidance system, your intuition, your soul to communicate what it wants to share with you. Because if you keep ignoring it, if you keep pretending it's not there, that feeling will keep coming up in your life. So I think that's the first step, is really identifying if you are feeling these feelings of unhappiness, what is that specifically, and allow yourself to have a conversation with that emotion.
Totally, because I think what happens for a lot of us when we're feeling an emotion is that we get caught in the story that our mind is telling us about it. So if I'm angry, I'll be like, well, this person shouldn't have said this or done this, and I should get this, well, whatever it is that I want that I didn't get, and it's unfair, or whatever the story is. You're making it about the other person. And not that there's not a story that's true, but that takes us away from actually feeling, what is anger? What is it that I'm not getting? Why is that important to me? What does that feel like?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of times we want to blame the other person. We want to not take accountability. And I love this quote from A Course in Miracles, which is a metaphysical text that says, would I rather be happy or would I rather be right? And I think sometimes this need to be right interferes with our happiness. So knowing that no one can make us feel anything. That's a choice that we make to feel that feeling in that moment. We can either be upset and react in a certain way, or we can react in a different way. So knowing that, and, I love going back to that quote when I am in that moment of, I feel upset right now, but why am I feeling that way? And, taking care of my side of the street. What are the things that I've done to feel this feeling? Because knowing that no one can make you feel anything, you choose how you feel.
Exactly. And I think that it's easy to understand that, but challenging to put into practice, of course, because when you are feeling angry or sad or upset, then it's hard to be like, it's not about the other person, it's about me, and what is it that I need that I'm not getting? And so what's the next step after feeling your feelings?
So there's a lot of different practices that I help people to use to help make changes in their life. And some of my favorite is just deciding. So making the decision to be happy. So I think that this decision starts first thing in the morning. So your brain is very impressionable first thing in the morning. So if you start your day with this positivity and you decide today's going to be a good day, then that can shift how your entire day unfolds. But yes, you have to make that decision when you first wake up of, I choose how I feel today and I choose to be happy. That's one of my favorite affirmations. But you have to make that decision throughout the day as that person cuts you off in front of you. Am I going to let this ruin my day, or am I going to be happy? Or when you get to work and you're running late, am I going to let this ruin my day, or am I going to be happy? Maybe you don't get that raise that you want to. Am I going to let this ruin my day, or am I going to be happy? So starting that decision making early in the day when your mind is impressionable, and when you can really start the day with that decision. And maybe people have noticed the opposite. When you wake up in a bad mood and you kind of made this decision already that today is not going to be a good day, most likely it isn't, because what you think about persists. What you think, you attract into your life through the law of attraction. So I would say first thing in the morning, decide to be happy. Another thing that I feel is so important to cultivate happiness in your life is gratitude. So when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night and throughout your day, remembering that when you're starting to feel sad, when you're starting to feel angry, when you're starting to feel stressed or overwhelmed, focus on gratitude. What do I already have in my life? How am I grateful? What are the good and positives in my life? When you look for those good things, when you look for all the ways that you already are happy, that you already are abundant, that you already are successful, you will find more of those things in your life. So positive thinking, starting the day with that decision, gratitude, those are so, so important. And this is one that I think is so simple, but so many of us actually don't implement it. And that is, in order to be happy, in order to feel joy, do more things that make you feel joyful. So one thing that my first life coach had taught me was every single day, do at least one thing that makes you happy. So whether that's writing a list of all the things that bring you joy. So for me, I love doing yoga. I love meditating. I love going outside, going to parks, reading, going to amusement parks, all these different things I identified that I loved doing. And then every single day I try to make an effort to do at least one thing on that list. So today I did do something that makes me feel joy. Even if I had to work, even if I had to help out my family or do things around the house, you still have to cultivate and make time for yourself. That's so key. So it's an act of self-love. It's an act of self-care, but doing things that make you feel that state of joy, doing things that make you feel good, and doing them on a daily basis is so, so important to your level of happiness and how you choose to live your life.
Definitely. I think those are excellent suggestions. It's so often we forget to take care of ourselves and to do things for ourselves, and we put ourselves last and we get exhausted. And that's when our attention tends to go to, oh, I'm not getting enough from other people.
Yes.
You know? And if we can make time to really put ourselves first and do at least one thing a day that makes us happy, then we're so much more resourced to be able to ask for things from other people, not coming from this depleted place, this needy place.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to make sure that your cup is full so that you can be and show up in your relationships, especially for the one for yourself.
Right, exactly. And so why is it that you think that all of us have been taught that happiness comes from something outside of us?
I think that a lot of us have a case of the when I have. So we think that these external circumstances and people are going to fulfill us, but that's not the case at all. It's actually backwards. So when I think back on my own happiness journey, when I was in my early 20s, I was on this search. I was in a job that I really didn't like. I would cry almost every single day on my way home from work. I was in these relationships that weren't fulfilling, and I kept meeting people who weren't ready for love and weren't ready to settle down. And I wasn't making the kind of money that I wanted to make. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was searching. I was searching for this happiness. I thought that the right man was going to make me happy. I thought the right job was going to make me happy. I thought when I made more money, I would be happy. So I expected that my circumstances would change when all my circumstances would change how I felt inside. And when I started this journey and I started learning more about self-love and happiness and cultivating a feeling of happiness, I realized and learned that I had it backwards. And I actually had a chance to study under Hay House author, Dr. Robert Holden, and he is a happiness expert. That's primarily his focus and what he teaches on. And through him, I learned that happiness is only 10% conditional. So people think when that condition is met, so when I have that other person, when I have that job, when I make more money, when I move to where I want to live, then I'll be happy. But that's only 10% of our happiness level is when that condition is met. And that feeling of happiness is fleeting. So once I have that person, once I have that job, once I make more money, once I buy that car, once I buy that house, whatever it is that we think is going to fulfill us, that happiness only lasts for an average of 72 hours. So 72 hours after I have that person, after I make more money, after all these circumstances are met, that feeling will kind of fleet away. So if you weren't happy before those circumstances, you're not going to be happy after. So if anyone listening to this recording is thinking, wow, I have been thinking that I need to wait to be happy till I meet the right person, or wait to be happy till I'm more successful, or whatever your story looks like, I'm challenging you to think again, because the research proves that these conditions aren't going to make you that much happier, and it's not going to be a long-term happiness. That happiness has to come from within. That happiness needs to come from filling your own cup and doing the things that bring you joy and cultivating this feeling of joy on a daily basis. That is how you will actually get the things you want. Because when you're in a state of joy, when you're in a state of abundance, when you're in a state of positivity, that's when you attract and are a magnet to what you desire. So have you ever noticed, or, I would challenge the listeners to think about, do you have a friend, or do you know someone who is just super positive and people just are so attracted to that person, and you're like, wow, there's something about that person. Men want to be around her, people want to be around her. It's because most likely they're in that state of joy. Mm-hmm. When you're in that state of joy, you are a magnet to what you desire. Or when you're in that state of joy, that's when you attract that job. When you are in that state of joy, that's when you attract more money. So, I think we've been conditioned or believe that it's backward, that our conditions will make us happy, when in reality it's get happy and your conditions are more likely to be met.
Right, exactly. That's so true. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was in your book or someone else's, but reading about people who have their circumstances taken away, like people that become paralyzed. And they've done studies that show that a couple months later, they're just as happy as they were before. Yeah. So it's not their circumstances, it's their underlying level of mindset about happiness that causes them to choose to be happy no matter what their circumstances.
Oh, I love that. I actually don't think that, I mean, that wasn't from my book, but I love that. And I'm glad that you shared that because, yeah, that just reiterates the point almost backwards of, you know, it's not the circumstances in our life that make us happy. It's how we respond to them and the mindset that we have about how we are going to face obstacles and things that come up in our life. And again, that's that decision over and over again. Yes, things are going to happen in my life that I can't control, but how am I going to respond to it? Am I going to let it rock my world? Or am I going to stand up and say, I can get through this? And I can do that feeling joyful, and I can show up for my life in a state of joy. I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think making the decision is important, and the other steps you've mentioned are important. And what if someone's trying that and they're still feeling frustrated or sad or anxious? Like, what can we do with those feelings? Like, how does someone get in touch with their inner guidance around the feeling?
I love meditation, and I think it's a practice that should be done daily. I think meditation is what allows us to connect with our higher selves, with our soul. So there's two parts of ourselves. There's two voices in our head. There's that of the ego. That's the voice that tells us we're not smart enough, that we're not good enough. Its sole purpose is to keep us safe. And then there's this part of our soul, this connection with what I believe it's our connection with the divine, how we can get those inspired ideas, how we can feel in alignment with our truth. And the more that we tune into this voice of our inner guidance system through meditation and, you know, through other practices like yoga and breath work and things like that, when you allow yourself to listen to that voice will always tell you what you need. It will always tell you what you need to hear. But so often we don't listen to that voice. We listen to the ego. Right. We listen to that part of us that wants to keep us safe. So I think tuning in more to the voice of your soul, allowing yourself that stillness to actually hear the messages that it has for you and taking inspired action on those messages. But I think sometimes if there is a deeper fear, if there is a deeper feeling, it's having a conversation with those feelings. But it's also maybe there's some form of self-acceptance or forgiveness that needs to happen. So maybe when we think about guilt and shame, a lot of that is feelings of the past. So maybe something unresolved that we're holding on to. So those feelings, is there something you're holding on to? Is there someone you haven't forgiven? And that person can be yourself. So if you want to move forward and you want to find the right relationships, or you want to have a healthy relationship now, you need to come to terms with the past, and you need to forgive yourself. You need to forgive the other people involved. I think sometimes those feelings are directly correlated with living in the past. And another way to be happy, I believe, is to be in the present. So when we're not happy, often we're worrying, which is future tripping, or we're feeling shame or guilt or resentment, which are all correlated to the past. So in order to be truly happy, you have to live for today. You have to live for this moment and ask yourself, what am I thinking about? Am I worried about things that may or may not happen? And I learned this stat. I'm actually reading Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it says that 90% of what we worry about actually doesn't happen.
Right.
So when we are in these other states of mind, worry, fear, stress, it's often because we're not living in the present, because we're either worrying about circumstances we think will happen, which based on that statistic, most of the time they don't, or we're in this shame and this guilt and this resentment from the past. So to be happy, you have to live for today. And, you know, one of my favorite affirmations from A Course in Miracles is, I can see peace instead of this. So when I notice myself future tripping, or if I notice myself feeling shame for the past or things that I've done, I say that affirmation, I could see peace instead of this. And it reminds me, I could see peace instead of what I'm thinking about, instead of what I'm worrying about, and instead of what I'm stressing about. And that helps me come back to the future moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, because just saying that allows you to put your attention on what's peaceful about this moment.
Yes. Yes. And I think there's almost this form of, I could see peace instead of this. It's saying I have that choice. I can choose my own free will. I have free will. I can choose my own choices. So I think there's power in that. Like, yes, I could choose again. I could choose to be happy. I could choose to think a thought that feels good. And I think our thoughts are a good indicator of what we're going to experience in our life. So check in, how do I feel? If I feel sad, if I feel angry, then I'm thinking thoughts that are in alignment with that. So if I want to feel good, if I want to feel happy, I need to think happy, positive thoughts.
Definitely. And I mean, I think a lot of people hear that and can interpret that as repressing their feelings. Like, oh, I feel sad because I lost something important to me, and, you know, I'm going to think about positive things instead. But there's positive things that you could think about the loss that help you to process it.
Yes.
Like, I can choose to look at what I appreciated about what I lost. If it's a job, if it's a relationship, if it's a, you know, someone close to you that died. I mean, there's different levels of sadness and grief, of course, but it's like, can I appreciate the moments that I shared in that? You know, can I look at what I've learned from that? Like, those are positive thoughts to think about the loss, you know, that help us to really feel it. And then you're still feeling sad, but you're having positive thoughts about it.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that correlates back to even all the things that are going on in the United States right now and in the world, and all, you know, the loss and fear and chaos that's going on. And just even looking at, you know, Hurricane Harvey, and looking and noticing how willing people are to help, how much good is going on, and how much we're uniting together as a country. And I think that's so beautiful, because, you know, there is all this loss and sadness and devastation, but there's also this beauty of people being people and wanting to help and wanting to make a difference. And I think that in any situation in your life, you look through your own window. So someone else can literally be looking through that same window, but you can see the exact same picture in a completely different way. So if you choose to look out your window, and maybe it's a cloudy day, but you choose to see, you know, that your neighbor walking her kid to school and the beauty in that, or you choose to see how green the trees look, or, you know, whatever it is, realizing that you have a unique perspective and you can choose to see or perceive your world. And when you perceive it with the lens of love, and you look for the good and you look for the blessings in any situation, you will find them. Mm-hmm. And what did you learn from past situations? How did you grow? I think that looking at your past with that lens will help you live a happier life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think each emotion has different positive thoughts that you can choose to think that can help you process it, right? Like for resentment, for example, that's a great question to ask yourself. Like, what did I learn from that experience? You know, how did I show up in a way that didn't honor my own boundaries, or maybe I gave too much? And what am I choosing to do differently? So that, like, those are positive thoughts you can think in relationship to resentment. Or I think, like, how someone shows up in the face of a tragedy like Harvey is really inspiring. And that's how people show up in response to sadness and also anger. Like when there's a tragedy that happens, we feel anger, but we could feel anger at the hurricane and the weather and, you know, nature, which isn't going to change anything. Or we can recognize that anger is actually there to show us that there's some action that we can take, right? Anger is there to bring us into action. It's like, what action am I supposed to take to remedy this situation? Like, what can I do to help?
I love that. I think that's beautiful.
So yeah, of course. And I'm just kind of responding to your suggestion to focus on thoughts in response to the emotion that are positive thoughts, you know, because I think a lot of people hear that and they interpret that like, oh, that means I'm supposed to not feel that feeling and focus on something else. That's not it. But it's like, you know, feel the feeling and then relate to that feeling in a positive way. Like what does the feeling need? What is the need? What is the value that is not getting met, you know, and how can I take action on that, you know, because the feeling is like a flag that's jumping up and being like, hey, there's something you need to put attention on. You know, sometimes we'll repress those feelings and focus on something that's distracting us rather than opening up the dialogue. So that's what I hear you talking about.
Yeah. And I've heard, I think I've heard it from Gabby Bernstein, a spiritual teacher and author. And I believe it was from her, but she said, often sit with a feeling for at least 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. Because when you allow yourself to feel that feeling, you can understand it more. You can decide what you're feeling. You can start to just almost shine the light on it, because, you know, darkness can't grow when there's light. So when you shine that light on that emotion, you allow yourself to feel it, you allow yourself to be raw and open, then that's when you can sort of begin to heal and begin to move past it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling your emotions and allowing yourself to be human, because we all feel them. And, you know, you shouldn't look at them with shame and embarrassment. And I think self-acceptance and how you accept yourself with the decisions you've made in your life is a big part of happiness too, because you can look on yourself with judgment and fear, or you can choose to say, wow, I learned a lot from that, or wow, it made me who I am. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like what qualities did I cultivate in myself from that now I can use for my benefit?
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, because I think a lot of people think happiness is an emotion, you know, like fear or like joy. But what I hear you saying is that happiness is actually a decision that we make. And, you know, it's what I'm also hearing you say is that it's about having an attitude of self-acceptance and non-judgment and curiosity towards what it is that is going on inside me and what is the message for me in this experience. How can I look at this for my highest good? And that happiness is that decision to look at it in that way.
Yeah, I definitely, I feel that joy is that genuine emotion that can come from these feelings, if that makes sense. So I think when you think of joy, you think of that feeling of feeling good, of feeling happy, and joy is one of the highest vibrational feelings. So for those listeners who aren't familiar with this, is every thought that we think has a frequency. So thoughts vibrate at a high or low frequency because thoughts are energy. So higher vibrational thoughts, one of the highest vibrational thought that you can think are thoughts of joy. And when you come towards those thoughts of joy, you will start to attract more things into your life, because your thoughts are energy and they attract what you want based on what you're thinking. And when you're in a lower energetic frequency, so some of the lower energetic frequencies can be despair, shame, anger, guilt. So there is hopelessness. When you are in those states, it's reaching for a more positive thought that can help you get closer to that state of joy and self-acceptance, and all the practices that we talked about, doing things that make you feel good, things that can help cultivate this happiness will get you higher on that scale, which will allow you to attract and live more of the life that you really desire.
Exactly. Yeah. And have you noticed that there's any, I love the affirmations that you've shared so far. Like, I can see peace instead of this. Um, is there an affirmation that you give to people when they want to think thoughts of joy, but it doesn't come to their mind because they're in a lower vibration?
One simple thing could be, I choose to think thoughts that feel good.
Mm.
So you're like, wow, I'm really beating myself up right now. The inner critic is really coming up. So, sometimes just saying thank you for sharing, because, the ego is part of ourselves. It just wants to protect us. It has its purpose. But that purpose can paralyze us and keep us from what we want if we don't recognize and acknowledge it. But simply saying, I choose to think thoughts that feel good. Or, I could see peace instead of this. Another affirmation from A Course in Miracles is, I am not a victim of the world I see. And again, that goes back to, our perceptions and how we choose to see the world. But I love affirmations. I could come up with them all day long. But just simply saying, I am happy. Or sometimes I even love, so sometimes if you feel like saying I am happy, it doesn't resonate, you don't feel it energetically, just saying the word happy over and over again, or joy, peace, love, thinking that word over and over, even if it feels too hard to say I am lovable, or I am love, just thinking love. Or if it feels too hard to say I am happy, just think happy. And if you start thinking that word, you're going to notice that you start to feel better.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you were saying before about acceptance. I think just, like, for example, if your inner critic is really telling you how you've been wrong, telling it that it's wrong is just like, the more we resist, the more it persists, right? So
yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And, what are you trying to teach me? Like, what could I have done differently? You can ask those kind of questions, but also just like giving yourself compassion, I think, is an antidote to whatever it is that you're feeling. Like, imagine that you're sitting with a friend who's feeling that way, right? And like imagine you're sitting with a friend who's in the same situation. You wouldn't speak to your friend like that. How would you speak to your friend? And I think that helps people maybe to get out of their negative thinking. If they're realizing that they're talking to themselves the way they wouldn't talk to a friend, how would you talk to a friend in that situation? How would you help them to be happy, even though they're experiencing that? So just getting outside ourselves a little bit could help us think of better thoughts. Because isn't that ironic that I think a lot of times we treat other people better than we treat ourselves?
Yeah. And I belong to a meditation center nearby where I live in Pomona, and it's called Open Door to Yoga. And the slogan that they have is, today I'll be my own best friend. And I think that that's really a cool slogan. And two of my affirmations that came to mind by Louise Hay, I think, and when I really started my self-love journey, I would say these all day long. I would say them in the car. I would say them in the shower. I would say them when I feel like I did something that wasn't right at work. If I feel like I made a mistake, I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. And the other one is, I totally and completely love and accept myself. And for some people that might be like, whoa, I can't say that. That doesn't feel right. You can start it with, I'm willing to love and accept myself.
Yeah.
And from that willingness, maybe you do feel that love down the road, and you can begin to at least go towards that feeling.
I love that, because like, even if you say I love and accept myself and you don't feel it, saying I'm willing to kind of opens the door.
Yeah.
And allows us to maybe perceive the parts of us that are willing, or, because it could be just baby steps, right? And I love your suggestions about doing things every day that feel good, because, if you're caught in a negative spiral with your mind, a lot of times it's just about breaking the pattern and doing something else that really gets you into the present moment.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So thank you for sharing all those tools. Is there a message that you want our listeners to be left with? And of course, I want to hear about the things that you want to offer to people.
Oh, yeah. So I'd say just to close out, or a final message, I think sometimes we make being happier seem harder than it is. And, I think if you really follow your joy, if you follow what feels good, if you start to live in the present, if you start to be more aware of your thoughts, that's a really great start. And don't get frustrated if you feel like I've been feeling good for a few days and then this feeling came up. That's part of being human, and just having love and compassion for yourself in those moments, and knowing that if you've been happy before, if you felt joy before, you can do it again. And don't beat yourself up for it. We're all human. We all experience the same feelings, and that's what connects us. That's what unites us. So having that self-compassion. And one thing that I do offer is a worksheet that talks about my 9-step manifesting process. So manifesting, I believe, is just attracting into your life what you desire by your thoughts and the intentions that you set and you put out into the universe. So that is kind of my freebie that I'm going to be offering today. So I know, Valerie, you said that you'll be able to share the link with everyone, but
yes,
if you're wanting to cultivate or call in something in your life, whether that's love or whether that's a new job, money, anything really that you want to attract and bring in, this 9-step process will help you to understand the steps to really create the life that you want and to bring in what you desire into your life. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much. This has given me so many helpful tips, and I loved your affirmations. I found them to be very effective when I try them on. It's like, yes, I can look at things differently in the moment, and feeling your feelings, having a dialogue with them, making a gratitude list, really choosing your thoughts and having self-compassion and thinking positive thoughts about the feeling. I think that all helps to bring us back into the present moment. And, that's exactly where the answers are, right?
Yeah.
And from that place, it's possible to manifest. That's what I teach, and I know that's what you teach. That's been my experience. I mean, I whenever I'm really in the present moment, and that's where the guidance is, and I follow it, think it doesn't happen the way I think it will, but I do wind up creating what it is that I truly want, and I think that that's possible for everyone if they really get in alignment with themselves. So I encourage everyone to check out Ginger's link on the 9-step manifesting process, because this is, helped a lot of people. And I want to learn about exactly the 9 steps that you use. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm excited for you to check it out too. And I'm so excited to hear that you've read my book, and I always love hearing that. So thank you.
Yeah. And check out Ginger's book. It's called Your
Weekly Guide to Bliss.
Yes, Your Weekly Guide to Bliss, and it's available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
And you're welcome.
I hope that you have a great day, and I hope all of you out there have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys. Thank you.